We are just a little bit over a week from the 2022 NFL draft, and I put out my mock draft. Feel really good about it too. This is one of the best mock drafts I think I've ever put out. Now, quality has always been great, so that's never been in question. But I think the actual substance of the picks made in the draft were outstanding this year. So we'll see how it turns out. You know how this thing goes. Anyway, um, in doing all of this and going through all these prospects, you start to develop an affinity for some of them. You start to look at some of these guys that are in high regard by many around the league, and you say, I don't know really what you guys see in this guy, but I'm telling you, there's a bust factor here. Have to be careful. And then there's some guys that you just look at and you say, hey, that's as safe as it gets. I mean, I can look straight through that packaging, know exactly what I'm getting, and I won't be disappointed because I know what I'm getting. And then there's some guys that are in between in that mix. There's two ends of the spectrum, and then there's everything else in between. And I want to talk about all of it today on the show. And I want to talk about it with you guys on social media maneuvers as well. So a jam-packed show. Let's get straight to the proceedings this evening. You already know what it is. It's the 255th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 255th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lot to get to today. I want to talk about the draft and really all the conversations that we'll pretty much have from here on out until the end of the month will probably revolve around the draft in some way, shape, or form, because the draft is the biggest off-season event. It's the thing that we look forward to the most after the season is done. And then after the draft is done, there's really nothing to talk about until we get to training camp. So you're talking about a full 2.5 months of really dead air in the NFL. Yeah, we'll have OTAs and, some teams will show up at the early portion of June. Who gives a shit? Okay. At the end of the day, the draft is the crown jewel of the offseason. Yep. We'll get the schedule released here shortly, and we'll talk. That'll be something to talk about for a day or two, and then we'll move on. So the draft, for all intents and purposes, is the meat and potatoes of the NFL offseason. And so everything that we will talk about from here on out will probably revolve around the NFL draft. That said, let's jump into the proceedings this evening. And you know how I like to do that here on this particular program. Of course, it's the gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get to thinking a little bit. So in my travels of doing the draft 101, prospects over the years, and the draft wrap-up series, and all of the things that I've done surrounding the draft, it's given me a keen eye to certain things. And it was funny. I was reading a Bleacher Report article. I want to say it was today. Might have been yesterday. And it talked about the one player that each team regrets drafting in the last 5 years. And so it was 32 players, one player for each team. And I went through that list, and it's crazy because in my mind, I think about stuff like this. In my mind, I looked at that list of players for each team, and about 20 to 22 of them, I literally said when that player was drafted, I don't believe in this pick. I don't believe in this player, and this guy could turn out to not work for this team. And, it's just crazy looking back because, I don't think we do that enough with drafts. We always do the redrafts. Oh, what would have happened if, we look at this draft 5 years down the road and we go back and redraft? Clearly, Justin Herbert is the number 2 overall pick. And we don't need 5 years to figure that out. If we go back in time to the 2020 NFL draft, Justin Herbert's the 2nd pick overall. But we don't talk about the guys that didn't work a lot of times. And we don't go back and look at those drafts and look at that aspect of it. And so it's always remarkable when you go back, which is why I do that on the podcast when I, get in the time machine and we go back into time or we go, down memory lane and we go look at one of these drafts. It's amazing. Sometimes you just go back and you just look at the first round, then you look at the second round and you look at some of these guys. And then you see guys that had tremendous starts to their career and then they just fizzled out, or they had one big year and then they fell off of the face of the NFL earth. It's amazing how that happens sometimes. But in any event, I want to talk about guys in this particular draft class that you have to be careful about. Okay. They're going to be risky propositions. Okay. Risky gambles if you decide to pull the trigger on them. Now, it's a high boom possibility, but it's also a very, very high bust probability as well. The safe guys are the guys where the floor and the ceiling are almost one and the same. Like, hey, the lowest this guy is going to be is a 12-year starter in the league, or the lowest this guy's going to be is a Pro Bowl player. Like, he's not going to fail unless injuries overtake his career. But if this guy's healthy, he's going to be a Pro Bowl player or a perennial Pro Bowl player and a guy that is well respected around the league for his game. Like, those are the safe players. Or a player that you just know what you're going to get out of them. You don't necessarily say that they're going to be a Pro Bowl player, but you just know what you're going to get. Okay. And then there are the players that are in between. And some of them are like surprises to me. Guys that I'm willing to jump on the table, bang it for, and say, hey, this is a guy that I think is going to surprise people. Some of them are hot takes. Some of them are just, me shooting, my shot. And then others are just, it's a dart that I'm throwing in the dark. So let's start with, and I want your opinion. I want to hear who you have as your safest players, the riskiest guys that are boom or bust, and anything in between. Go ahead and start lining those comments up. Use the hashtag LouieTLive. We'll get to those in the next segment of the show. And anybody that wants to jump to the front of the line, you know how to do that. Super chats are the way to do that. So go ahead and start lining those up. So when I'm done, we can jump into what you guys have to say. So for me, there are a few guys that I look at as safe, prospects in this draft that I like. I just don't see how this guy's not good. He's not as advertised. He's not a quality NFL football player. One of those guys for me is Tyler Linderbaum. I don't see, like, it's sort of like Creed Humphrey last year. And a lot of people feel like he's going to be the Creed Humphrey of this year's draft class. I see it the exact same way. I just don't see how he's not good. I just feel like wherever he goes, he's plug and play, and he's plug and play for the next 12 years. Easy. So I just, the floor and the ceiling for me with him, I don't know if the ceiling and the floor are one and the same, but the floor is not that far behind the ceiling. It's like really high. So he's one of those guys I just look at and say, I just don't know how he's not going to be good at the next level. Another one of those guys that I feel like is a very safe pick, not for the same reason as Tyler Linderbaum, but I just think he's going to end up being, I know what he is. I could be wrong about this, but it's quarterback Desmond Ridder. I look at Desmond Ridder and I know who you are already. I know your game. I know how your game translates. You're Alex Smith. You're Ryan Tannehill. You're a guy that can manage the game. That, look, if you only have to throw it 12 times, you have no problems turning around, handing it off. But if they need you to step up, make a throw here and there, you can do that. But when it comes to the playoffs and it comes time to outduel Tom Brady, or in the AFC in particular, and let's hope that he doesn't end up in that, brawl for all out there in the AFC. If he goes to the NFC, he'll have a chance to take a team to the NFC Championship game, possibly to the Super Bowl, if they've got a strong enough defense and a quality running game and supporting cast around him, because he's not going to lose you the football game. All right. But you send him out to the AFC in the Wild Wild West, okay, where there's Deshaun Watson and there's Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. He's going to get filleted in those matchups. He's going to get filleted. Now, the Titans are saying, if we had a Desmond Ridder, if we had an Alex Smith last year that didn't turn it over, because Ryan Tannehill did turn it over, we beat the Cincinnati Bengals. That may be true. You may not be wrong there. Okay. But you wouldn't have won the following week at Kansas City. Not with Ryan Tannehill playing the way that he did, or not with a quarterback that was just going to go in there and think that they were just going to show up. You're going to have your quarterback make plays. I don't know if Desmond Ridder can do that consistently enough to be anything other than a marginal NFL starter. One of those guys that when we look at him, he'll be in that, 17 to 23 range his entire career in terms of where he ranks. He'll never be top quarter of the league. He may sneak into 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 range, but that's if he maximizes who he is. Hard for me to imagine him being a top 10, top 8 quarterback in this league. I just think I know who he is. I've seen that movie before. I know what he's going to be at the next level. And that's not a knock on him necessarily from the standpoint of he can't get it done, because we've been talking about these quarterbacks and how they can't get it done and how this is a terrible draft class. I just think he's a guy that if you put him on the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season, I think he could lead them to 10 wins. He's that kind of guy. So that's one of those players. Okay. Another one of those guys that I feel like I just think he's safe, man, is Chris Olave. A healthy Chris Olave to me is a guy that will come in and his game will age well over time because he can separate, he can run routes. And guys that can run routes, look, when you're really fast, but you're not a route runner, you're not technical, if you lose a step, you start to lose the ability to produce. He's one of those guys that he runs a 4.38 right now, or 4.39. I think he ran a 4.39 at the combine, and Garrett Wilson ran a 4.38. If that 4.39 turns into a 4.47 and then later in his career turns into a 4.54, he'll still be able to get open. He'll still be able to catch, 77 balls and be able to produce at a relatively high level. I just think Chris Olave comes in. He's smooth. He's a route runner. He does all of the little things well. He's technically sound. He can also run, obviously, and take the top off of a defense. Not the strongest guy in the world, but when you're separating the way that he does, he'll be just fine. So I think he's another really safe player in this draft. A guy that I think is catching a lot of flack because of his lack of foot speed is Kyle Hamilton. I think the dude is super safe. I don't really see how he's not good, how his skill set doesn't translate to the next level. Let's say someone decides that they want to stick him on the back end of the defense as primarily a free safety, a ball hawking free safety. He can do that. Now, let's say that the transition doesn't go well and that foot speed does come into question. Okay, well then bump him down inside the box and let him be a nuisance there, because he can still be a tremendous defender right around the line of scrimmage. I think he can run with tight ends. He's got the length to run with these tight ends and stay in phase with them. At 6'4", a lot of times with these safeties, they're 6 feet, they're 6'1", and then you get this 6'4", 6'5" tight end that can run. It's a tough matchup. Well, this guy's 6'4" with ridiculously long arms, and he can move. And so for me, he's right there as another one of these guys that I think is just extremely safe in this draft class. So these are all the prospects that I look at, and there are a ton more, but I'll save some for you guys. Those are the guys that I look at and I say they're safe. They're safe. I just don't see how they fail at the next level, barring injury. Then you have the guys at the other end of the spectrum. Okay, these are the players that I look at as risky propositions. These are the guys that I look at and I say, look, I don't know, man. He could be really good, but if it doesn't go well, it could be really, really bad, and it could go all bad really fast. So the first guy, and I've been saying this, so you know where I'm going with this one if you've been watching me this offseason, in particular with the draft, it's Drake London. I'm not the biggest Drake London fan. Doesn't mean the guy's not talented. Doesn't mean he can't be an effective football player at the next level. I've heard some people comp him to Mike Evans. He is not, I repeat, not Michael Evans at all, not even remotely close. I think the real comp for him, I comped him to Kenny Britt because of the inconsistent nature of his game. I think that I think the best comp I've heard, and I think it's spot on, it's better than the comp that I gave, it's Mike Williams. He's Mike Williams, because even now, as we sit here with Mike Williams getting that lucrative deal this offseason, Mike Williams still has drops. There's still concentration drops. Balls go right through Mike Williams' hands. Yet he's still one of the best 50-50 ball go-getters in the league. He takes the 50-50 ball, turns it into a 70-30, 80-20 type ball down the field. He's still a guy that catches the ball in contested situations because he can't always separate. And Mike Williams is a lot faster than people give him credit for. So I look at Drake London, and all of those qualities to me are there. He looks a lot like Mike Williams. That's to me on the high side. If he maximizes the potential and turns that into talent that actually manifests itself, he's Mike Williams, which is a really good receiver, not a number one wide receiver, but a really good receiver to have on your team. If he bottoms out and he doesn't get it done at the NFL level, then he's like Miles Boykin, who just got released, you know. And we could go, there's a slew of first round receivers who didn't pan out in the NFL. And you could pick, I mean, he's Kevin White. You can go with a big, body receiver, a bigger guy. He's Kevin White. He's Laquan Treadwell. You go down the list of these guys that were big receivers that we thought, oh, it doesn't matter that they can't run, that they'll catch it in traffic. No, it matters if you can't separate. Unless you know how to use your body properly and get guys off of you, you better have a strong set of hands if guys are going to be draped all over you. And there are too many drops on tape for me with Drake London. He's physical, though. He'll block in the run game. He'll go up and get the football. He's not afraid to attack the football in the air. But again, there are too many drops. I can tell you he's not fast. He knows he's not fast. The man literally said, I feel stronger and faster than ever before, but yet he won't run a 40, which is smart. I think it's the smart and the right thing to do. If you know you're going to run slow, don't run. I said this on my mock draft, and I mean this. The only thing that's worse than not running a 40 is running a slow 40. Kyle Hamilton, with his explosive vert and explosive broad jump, if he knows he was training and he was running consistently a 4.55, then you're going to run a 4.55 or worse. Don't go out there and run that 4.55. 6 years ago, that 4.55 would have been blazing fast for a safety. That is no longer the case. We're expecting, when we see those numbers, when your vertical leap is 40 inches and your broad is, 11 and some change, I don't know what his was, but it was off the charts high. Then we're expecting you, that always usually translates to a fast 40 time. At that moment, after I broad jumped, because I've already vert, and after that broad jump, oh man, I felt something tweaking my calf. Yeah, I can't go. And then I'm gonna have my people put out that, yeah, I have a strained calf muscle. I'm not doing anything at the pro day. I'm not running before the draft, but the tape's there. Ding! And then you see the explosive numbers from the vert and the broad, and you're thinking, oh, he's a 4.4 dude. We watch the tape. He's getting everywhere from red line to red line. Oh yeah, he's in the bag. He would be a top 5 pick in every mock draft consensus you've seen. But instead, this is a guy that's fallen out of the top 10 in a lot of drafts. I don't think he's going to fall out of the top 10, but to me, he's a safe prospect. But back to where I was. I don't know how I got on Kyle Hamilton, but I know how I got on him, because I talked about not running the 40, and Drake London didn't run a 40. He didn't run a 40 because he knows he's going to run slow, which is the same thing Laquan Treadwell knew he wasn't going to run fast. So he didn't run at the combine. He ended up running his pro day, and he wasn't fast. So Drake London is like, look, you've seen the tape. I can catch the football in traffic. I can do what I need to do. Okay, we'll see. If he is the best version of himself, he's Mike Williams, and that's a good, solid selection. If not, he could easily turn into Michael Floyd. He could easily turn into Kevin White. He could easily turn into Laquan Treadwell. So we'll see what he turns out to be. He's a boomer bust prospect, if you ask me, the biggest in the first round. Another guy that I think is a boomer bust. Anytime you get to the NFL draft, the quarterbacks dominate the conversation. For me, Malik Willis is this guy that is so polarizing because he's shooting up draft boards. I honestly, you saw my mock draft. I think this guy's going to be a top 10 pick. I got him being a top 5 pick. If you haven't watched the mock draft, spoiler alert, it's there for your consumption. Go check it out. But I've got him being a top 5 pick. And someone's going to be desperate and thirsty enough to trade up for this kid, and he's going to go a lot sooner than people think. I've seen mock drafts where the Steelers just get to sit at 20, and he falls. He's not going to fall in the Steelers' lap at 20. I can assure you of this. Okay, I don't think he gets past 6 at Carolina personally, which is why he was taken at number 5 in my mock draft. So he's a guy that I look at, and I'm just telling you, the kid is super talented. He's got all the requisite skills you need. He needs time. Hopefully he's able to get that. The worst thing that could happen to him is that he's drafted to a team that doesn't have a real answer. Like Seattle would be the worst place that he could go. Even though they got Geno Smith and they signed Geno Smith officially back today, and they could start Geno or they could start Drew Lock, they may feel the pressure to put him in there. And if he's not ready, it could destroy him. I'd rather him go somewhere like a Pittsburgh where they've definitely got Mitchell Trubisky and they don't have to play Malik Willis right away. And he's able to sit and learn. Again, if he goes to Carolina at 6, Sam Darnold is going to stink and he may get injured. He may not, but he's going to stink. And by week 4, they're going to be like, okay, enough of this Sam Darnold shit. Let's put Malik in there. So I just hope he goes somewhere where he's allowed to learn, sit and learn and kind of come along at his pace. But I think some people are a lot higher on him. He could turn out to be awesome and turn out to be the next, Russell Wilson, but he could also turn out to stink and be EJ Manuel, or some other first-round quarterback that just was awful. You can go down the list of these dudes that weren't any good. Johnny Manziel, so forth and so forth and so forth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But this is what this league has come to. You have to roll the dice on a quarterback. So we talked about how this quarterback draft class wasn't all that great. We're going to see 3 or 4. I think the bare minimum is 3 first-round picks. I think we're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the first round. For all the shit that we're talking, 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. No worse than 3. Another guy that I look at as a very risky proposition in this draft class, and I think he's super talented, just like Malik Willis, is Kayvon Thibodeau. There's something amiss there. Something's off with this guy. First of all, the tape isn't all that great to me. The tape is solid. It's not top 5, which he's going to go. It's not top 5 dominant tape. But the measurables, the traits and characteristics, they're there in terms of explosive. He's explosive. That to me is his best characteristic right now. I listened to this guy talk about strategy and how he's setting tackles up. I'm like, I don't see that shit on tape. I don't see you setting anybody up. I just see you winning with raw athleticism. I don't see a bevy of moves, but he's a guy that talks a good game, and I want to see if he can back it up at the next level. So he, to me, is another boom or bust prospect that he could be a 12, 13 sack guy. He could easily be one of these dudes. We go 3 years down the road and he's only got 6 career sacks. I could see that happening too. So got to be careful. I'd hate to see him turn into another Vernon Golston, but I could see that shit happening with him. So, where's Jarvis Jones now? I could see that happening with Kayvon Thibodeau. So, he's another one of these dudes I'm not quite sure of. Another guy that's in that conversation, even though I tend to believe that this guy's going to be a stud if he's healthy. But again, the tape is uneven after his freshman year, is Derek Stingley Jr. I think that's another guy that has to concern you. I love him. I think he's the most talented player in the draft, period. If he's right mentally and physically, what I saw in 2019, there is another player in this draft that has better tape than that 2019 season with Derek Stingley. It's amazing. And he looked like an 8-year prime of the career NFL, shut down corner as a freshman in college. I've never seen anything like it. I would imagine that's what Deion Sanders looked like in college. I didn't get to see Deion Sanders in college. I would imagine that's what he looked like. Like, it didn't make sense to even try him. That year, it didn't make sense for quarterbacks to try him, but because he was a freshman, they continued to try him, and he continued to make them wrong every single time. But you can't dismiss 2020. You can't dismiss 2021. You can't dismiss the injuries. You can't dismiss the uneven tape. It exists. But if he's 2019, Derek Stingley Jr., or as I like to say, if he's number 24 Derek Stingley Jr. and not number 7 Derek Stingley Jr. If you're getting number 24, are you getting a stud? If you're getting number 7, I don't know about that. All bets are off. So we'll see. And I know 24 did dip into the 2020 season, but that was COVID. You know, I can whisk that away. I can't vouch for 2021. And when he changed jersey numbers to number 7, I can't vouch for that. But all right. So let's get to in between, all the guys that are in between. So I've gone to both ends of the spectrum. So who's in between? I want to talk about surprises, guys that I think when we look back on this draft class, they're going to surprise the hell out of you with how good they actually turned out to be. And maybe you won't be surprised. Maybe you think these guys are really, really good. The first guy that I will stand up on the table and stunt. I will tap dance on the table. Give me some tap shoes. I will tap dance on top of the table to tell you that I think he's going to be good. I told you there's going to be one out of this group of quarterbacks, and there's 6 of them. Okay. Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Carson Strong, and I'm missing one more guy. Who am I missing? I can't think of who I'm missing. I'm missing one more quarterback. There were 6 of them. Okay. Of those 6, one of them is going to be good, I think. I think one of them is going to be good, exceed expectations, and knock it out of the park. The rest of them, I'm not sure about. Sam Howell. Thank you, Bob Esther. Sam Howell. That's the guy that I'm forgetting. Thank you. That's the 6th quarterback. Of those 6, I think one's going to be really good. I think Desmond Ridder is going to be the mainstay, the guy that, you know what you're getting. Worst case scenario, 8-year backup quarterback. He gets a chance to start maybe once or twice. Everybody realizes he ain't it, but you can do a hell of a lot worse. And then worst case scenario, he's a quality NFL backup that you just love. Like, that's where Mitchell Trubisky's heading. Like, that's exactly what Mitchell Trubisky is. He got a chance to start in Chicago. It didn't work out. He's going to get a chance to start in Pittsburgh. They're going to quickly realize, love the kid. Perfect kid to marry my daughter. That's what one of the Bills, I think the Bills GM said, Brandon Beane. And all of that is great. I don't want him starting at quarterback for my football team, but he can be the backup on my team. I think that's essentially where you'll end up being with Desmond Ridder. The guy out of that group that I think has a chance to be really good is Matt Corral. That's the guy that I'm going out on a limb for and saying his skill set translates to the NFL. He has to land in the right spot, though. He cannot be drafted by the wrong team. If he's drafted by the wrong team, he will fail. Every one of these quarterbacks, and I can say that about any quarterback in any given draft, that they have to be drafted by the right team. But it is even more imperative this year because the talent level isn't off the charts. When you're super talented, you may be able to defy the odds of poor coaching or being in a bad system or not having a ton of talent around you. You may be able to defy the odds and rise above and drag some of these players along for the ride. But if you're not super talented, then everything needs to be in working order when you get there. And for a guy like Matt Corral, who isn't the biggest in the world, I was actually shocked that he measured out at 6'2", because I watching him on tape, he looked like he was 6 feet. So when he went to the combine and he actually checked out at 6 feet and he weighed a little bit more than I thought he was going to weigh. I think he weighed like 215. I'm like, this dude's probably 6 feet, 204. Like, he's tiny. No, he's like 6'2", like 209 or something, 219, something like that. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. He's that big? Okay. I can work with that. Matt Corral has a good enough arm. He's got tremendous athleticism. He's got a quick release. which is going to save him in certain instances. And I think he understands the game well enough. So I look at his skill set. I look at him playing in the SEC against NFL caliber talent week in, week out. And I look at some of the things he was able to do. I just like Matt Corral a ton. So that's the guy that I think he's in that, in the middle. And I think he's actually going to turn out to be better than people think. Another guy that I think has a chance to be really good. I know I'm a bit of a homer. Again, think he just needs to go to the right spot. Is Notre Dame running back. Why can't I think of his name? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now. Gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Jesus. Starts with the damn K. Why? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but he's not fast. That's not, but man, if he isn't the best, run block or pass protecting running back in this year's draft class, and he can catch it out of the backfield, he can run it in between the tackles. He doesn't have home run speed, but he can hit a ton of doubles. And I think he can be the type of running back that is a great change of pace. So, Kyron Williams, thank you. I don't know why I was blanking on his name. Too many. I think it's just draft overload at this point. I think he's going to be another one of these guys. And there's that the running back position in particular is really interesting because there are several guys. James Cook is another guy that I think is going to be extraordinary at the NFL level. Isaiah Ford out of Cincinnati. I think he's another dude that's going to be extremely. Is his name? I don't think his name's Isaiah. It's Ford. I know his name is Ford. I got to get his name right. I've called him everything but his name. I'm going to look his name up right now because I literally have called that young man everything but his first name. Cincinnati Bearcat running back Ford. Jerome Ford. And I was like, his name, I thought his name started with a J. Like, it's not Isaiah. Jerome Ford is another one of these dudes. Transferred from Alabama. I think he is phenomenal. I think he's another guy. You can get him in the mid rounds. That's going to be really good, in this league. And I think he could be really good for a really long time. So I think there are some players that I think have a chance to be really good at various positions. I think Jalen Petrie, to me, is another one of these dudes, not going to be a first round pick. But if you put him on the right team, that guy's got stud written all over him. I'm just telling you right now. I look at him. Another guy that I absolutely love, think he's going to be a really good football player. He's feisty. He reminds me so much of Mike Hilton, is Roger McQuarrie. Now, I think Roger wants to play outside. I don't know if he's big enough to play with the big boys outside or not. But you watch him on tape, he is feisty and he's fighting with every damn body. And he doesn't give a shit. Anybody can get the smoke at any time. Not the fastest guy in the world, doesn't care. I just love his demeanor. I love the way he approaches the game. He's another guy that I'd go to bat for. Is Roger McQuarrie, corner from Auburn. And there's a number of those guys throughout this draft that I just love. So let's get to your comments and transition to social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. So if you are out there and you have something to say, please use the hashtag LouieTLive. If you want to jump to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do that. So with that said, I have a super chat. Malachi Malik, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Malachi writes, Washington met with Wilson on Monday, Lou. Are you sure we are sold on Olave over Wilson? Honestly, I'm okay with either one. I think they're sold on Ohio State wide receiver. I don't think they I think both of those guys are in play. Honestly, I think 3 guys are in play at 11. And if you trade back, I think then one of the 3 is replaced with another guy because he won't be there. So here's how I think it plays out for Washington. If you stay at 11, which is the more likely scenario, you stay at 11, I think 3 guys are in play. I think it's the 2 Ohio State wide receivers and Kyle Hamilton. I don't think Hamilton is going to be there, and there's a realistic possibility that Garrett Wilson isn't there, and it takes all of the options off the board, and you're just left with Olave. Now, there's some that will tell you that the USC receiver Drake London is also in that discussion, and that's fine. I don't think they're going to take him at 11. I don't think they should, but they're intrigued by him. But I truly believe he's going to fall down the board because he didn't run a 40, and teams are questioning his 40. His ability to separate. For me, I don't think enough people are talking about the drops on tape. Like, that's the shit that bothers me. I know he's not fast. I've seen guys in this league come in that weren't fast that got it done. Marquise Colston wasn't fast, but he knew how to use his body. Mike Williams isn't blazing fast. He's fast enough, though. I don't want to sit here and compare the two because I think Mike Williams is way faster than him. Mike Williams was like a 4.54, 4.52 dude. He's not running that. I think Drake London is closer to a 4.6, to be honest with you. And I might be disrespecting him greatly with a 4. I think he's like a 4.58 dude. Okay. The bottom line is, I don't think he's in the conversation at 11. I think if Washington were to trade back, Kyle Hamilton is gone now. If you trade back from 11, you'll be lucky if he gets to 11. You trade back from 11, there's no chance he's going to be, wherever you are next. So I think then it's still the 2 Ohio State wide receivers. And the further back you trade, the less likely it is Garrett Wilson's there. But Olave will still be there more likely than not. I think then Drake London starts to enter the conversation if trade back. So I don't know if they're sold on Olave or not. I think they are sold on Olave because I think Ron views Chris Olave as a carbon copy of Terry. And he's like, what's better than 1 Terry McLaurin? 2, when you're trying to change your image, you want as many guys that are just as good leaders on the field as they are off. Like, the reason why I keep telling people Terry's not going anywhere is because Terry is one of the faces of this franchise. He is a pillar. They're building around guys like Terry. He's not going anywhere. He's of too much value to the organization. I've had that conversation with you guys before. And I think they view Chris Olave as another Terry McLaurin type. Guy that's going to work extremely hard. He's going to do it the right way on the field. He's going to do it the right way off the field. And they're like, and oh, by the way, he's not a bad football player. He's extremely durable, can play inside, can play outside. He's shown the ability to run. Best route runner in the draft. He's technically sound and savvy, knows where to sit down in zone coverage. There's just so much to like with Olave. I think Ron's already shown the ability to not give a shit what everybody thinks about a guy that he's thinking about taking. If he's sold on a guy, he's going to take him. He did it last year with Jamin Davis. And people will say, well, it's too high for Olave at 11. And Ron doesn't give a shit about that. And I've always said, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. And if that's what they feel is the right decision, they're going to take him at 11. And I think that's what they're ultimately going to have to do because I think Garrett Wilson will be gone. And I think Kyle Hamilton will be gone as well. Andrew Scholl, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Andrew, writes, I got you, Lou. My 9, okay. Yeah, so I got it right. He says, I got you, Lou. My name rhymes with Powell. So is it Shao? Maybe it's Shao. I said Shoal. So he says, but if Washington drafts Hamilton, does this mean we won't value linebacker as much and just put him in different packages on defensive play calls? No. So what will happen? See, Washington already doesn't play a ton of base to begin with. So we generally aren't on the field with 3 linebackers as is. Primarily, we've got 2 linebackers on the field or just 1. So what he would allow you to do essentially is when we decide to go to, let's say, dime defense, which is, 6 defensive backs, 4 defensive linemen, and then 1 linebacker. Instead of having a linebacker on the field, you could just put Kyle Hamilton in. If that's what you wanted to do, theoretically speaking, you could just put him in at linebacker. if you wanted to, when you get to your, nickel packages, that's usually 5 defensive, which is why it's called nickel, 5 defensive backs. All right. Then you have 2 linebackers and 4 defensive linemen, 4 down linemen. So when you go to those, sets, he could be that third linebacker, which is the Buffalo nickel, that big linebacker that's technically still able to come down, because what happens when you go to nickel is that you become a little bit more vulnerable to the run, because you're taking a run defender and a linebacker who's much bigger off the field, and you're putting a much smaller defender and a secondary member, whether it's another corner or a safety, on the field. So theoretically, you're at a disadvantage in terms of the run game, unless that extra defender that you put on the field can act as a pseudo linebacker, which is why the Buffalo nickel term is such a big deal for Washington, because you want to still have the athleticism and flexibility to be able to, if they say, hey, this is the formation, and then they shift out of it, and all of a sudden it's an empty set, you don't want to panic. Oh my God, I got my run stopping linebacker on the field. He can't run, and now he's matched up with this running back. This is not good. You won't find yourself in those predicaments when you're able to put a guy, the athlete, with the athletic profile on the field of a Kyle Hamilton. You won't find yourself in that conundrum. He can come up, play the run, just like Cam Curl. He was so good at, coming down in his run fits, being physical, taking on guards, taking on fullbacks, taking on tight ends, still making tackles. So it was like you still had that linebacker on the field. So I think with Kyle Hamilton, what it would allow Washington to do is what they did a lot of last year, which is your 3 safety, looks, where you've got that extra safety on the field. And yeah, you could get a little bit exotic, when you decide to go to dime and things of that nature, and you only got one backer on the field. It could be Kyle Hamilton. You don't want to put too much on his plate right away. I think they would rather have that one guy be Cole Holcomb right now, because he knows the defense in and out. But over time, yeah, you could say, all right, we'll have 7 defensive backs, essentially. Like the Chargers, they've been doing that, where they don't have, a ton of linebackers. It almost became a thing where, Kaiser White and some of those guys, they were on the field all the time. They were like linebackers, but they were really safeties. So that's where it would start to come into play. If you drafted Kyle Hamilton, they're going to use him as more of a linebacker. But, again, apples, oranges, you call it whatever you want. Tomatoes, he's going to be down around the line of scrimmage. And then, look, that's the beauty of a Kyle Hamilton. He can still go away from the line of scrimmage and thrive. He doesn't have to be, Landon Collins was more of a box safety. So you really weren't comfortable with him playing too far back, but he could, but you didn't really want to do that. Hamilton can interchange, or as they like to say, rock and roll. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if he were available. Trevor Patch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, why to Philly? Of all places. He says, great mock. I found it funny because I didn't do that like with the intent to troll you. That's just how it felt. When I was doing the mock, I saw an opportunity. It felt like Philadelphia would love to get their hands on Jordan Davis. I think he's gonna, be a player in high demand at 12 and 13, potentially with Minnesota Vikings at 12. I think is a big time landing destination for him. Houston is another place he could end up at 13. So I just felt like if you're Philadelphia, take all of that out of the equation, go get him while he's there to be got. And it doesn't cost you a ton. They got a ton of draft capital. 83 overall isn't going to kill you if you're the Eagles. Give up the 3rd round pick, go up 4 spots, get your guy, and keep it pushing. You still got, another 2 first round picks under your belt. So, or you have another 1st round pick, under your belt. So, yeah, it's just crazy how it turned out. But you said 11. You said you wanted Jordan Davis at 11. You got him. It's just not the team that you were hoping he would be on. That's all. Let's see if I have any more super chats. I do not. So let's get to the comment section. And we'll take a few of these before we move on to our final segment of the show. If we get enough comments and I'm in the rhythm and flow, we'll just scrap garbage time for today and stick with the comments. Rich says, just so I get my thought out, I believe Malik Willis is going to be very good in the league, like very, very good. He has all the traits to succeed and has shown progression in his years. And that's, I think a lot of people are banking on that. The fact that this guy's super talented and he's continuing to grow and develop as a passer as time moves on. So um, we'll see. I'm not as sold on Malik Willis, but I don't think he's going to be terrible. I just don't think he's going to be worthy of where he ultimately ends up going. That's what I think. We see this all the time with quarterbacks where you get desperate. I think he's going to be like Daniel Jones, one of those guys that gets overdrafted, which then means a lot of pressure is put on him because, we spent a top 10 pick on you. We need you to produce. I think there are going to be moments where he wows you, just like it was with Daniel Jones, especially in his rookie season. And then there are going to be moments where you say, what the hell was that? Or you can't just take off and run, or you can't just take off and run into a sack. You have to stand in there. And I think that act will grow old and tired quickly. And eventually they'll have to move, whomever drafts him will move on from him. So we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I'm rooting for the kid. Let's see. Captain Spartan. Thank you for the super. Captain Spartan says, I will let you know, besides Malik Willis, I have no idea who the Steelers are looking at. It's frustrating because normally they leave a cookie trail, but they've been cleaning up this year. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they really, truly do want a quarterback, because this is, Kevin Colbert's last song and dance. And I think he is viewing the Ozzie Newsome model on the way out of, hey, I want to leave a lasting legacy. I want to say, hey, this is my parting gift to you on the way out. Ozzie did it with Lamar Jackson. I think Kevin Colbert wants to do it with the Steelers on his way out. And so that's why I think they're being tight-lipped about what they're doing, because they want a quarterback and they don't want anybody to know exactly who they're after. They've had, at least 3, if not 4 quarterbacks in as one of their 30 visits. It's Malik Willis, like you said. That's the guy that they're really targeting. I think as a consolation, they don't have any problems taking Kenny Pickett. But I think, ultimately, you saw my mock draft. I don't think either one of them, if the Steelers aren't aggressive, they're going to have to get aggressive like they did when they came up to get Devin Bush some years ago. They're going to have to get aggressive and come up if they want one of these quarterbacks. If not, if you're going to just wait for a guy to fall into your lap, you're going to end up getting, maybe the 4th best quarterback in this draft class. And you don't want to do that because we already don't think these guys are all that great to begin with. So we'll see. But I think there are other players that make a ton of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Devontae Wyatt is a guy that could easily fall out of the first round. We know about the off-the-field issues. That's why I dropped him down in my mock draft, because the dude, his talent suggests he should be a top 15 pick in this draft. But the reason I dropped him down to the back end of the first round is because there are going to be teams that just totally take him off the board. And in today's climate and environment where there's zero tolerance, and I'm not saying that there should have ever been tolerance for, domestic violence. And I don't know to what extent, he's been involved in that. I just know that there are several incidents with him that have happened throughout the course of his career to this point that I think it scares teams. And they just don't want to deal with the headache. They don't want to deal with, 2 years into this guy's rookie contract, he's gotten himself into some hot water, and now they got to deal with this shit. So it'll take a special team to say, you know what, we don't care anything about that. We've done our due diligence. We've done our homework on the kid. We feel like he's fine. But I think Wyatt is I think he's a possibility for the Steelers at 20. I think Tyler Lindenbaum, even though I know you went heavy on offensive line last year, I wasn't overly impressed with anything that you drafted last year on the offensive line. So I wouldn't be shocked if they said, hey, because whomever's at quarterback is going to need to be protected better than, we did last year. So I wouldn't be shocked if you went in that direction either. But you could go corner too, But we'll see what they decide to do. I think it's going to be quarterback, because if you don't get one in the first round, then I don't care who you draft in the second round. You're not leaving a legacy behind if you're Kevin Colbert. So Richie Rich, or I always do that. Richie writes, whose seat is hotter with a bad season? Ron Rivera or Chase Young? You have to be patient. With a bad season, I think the So whose perspective are you asking this from? Are you asking it from management, or are you asking it from the perspective of the fans? Because I think if you're asking from management standpoint, it's Chase Young. Because I don't think Ron Rivera is going anywhere yet. I think he's pretty safe for the next, 2-3 years, 2 years minimum. But if you're talking about Chase Young, they were expecting this guy to be a superstar. And when you draft a guy second overall, when you draft a guy 2 overall, I need that guy to be a stud, and I need that guy to be a linchpin and foundational piece moving forward. And if he has another train wreck of a season, then that starts to be come into question. And there's already this sentiment that, hey, we should have taken Justin Herbert, but again, nobody saw that coming. I think that's one of the worst takes, because clearly it's easy in hindsight to say what you should have done. Justin Herbert wasn't viewed as the prospect that he turned into. He wasn't viewed that way coming into the league. Clearly, he wouldn't have fell as far as he did. And he didn't fall tremendously far, but he fell to 7. If I'm not mistaken, the Chargers were 7th. So I think if you're talking about it from a fan perspective, it's Ron Rivera, because that's what fans do. They blame the coach. Shit doesn't go well, you blame the coach. So they'd want Ron Rivera's head on a stick. Now, Chase wouldn't be out of the woods. You already got people calling him a bust already. They're already using the B word with him. So he wouldn't be out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. But all the blame and the vitriol would go to Ron Rivera first. And then once they got rid of his ass, then they would turn their attention to guys like Chase Young. But I think if you're looking at it from front office perspective, they need Chase Young to be a stud. If he doesn't, they've got his face plastered all over the website. They've got him as one of those guys that's out in the forefront of this organization. He's supposed to be one of the faces of this franchise. When you don't have a quarterback, you need other guys to step up and be the face of your franchise. For many years, we were a faceless franchise. The best player was Ryan Kerrigan. You can't market Ryan Kerrigan. He's not a marketable guy. Okay, he's a really good guy. You love him. Consummate professional, but he's not a guy you put on a marquee when you're having a big Sunday night game. Like, nobody cares. He doesn't move the needle. Chase Young is a guy that you can do that with, which is why they need him to be good. So if he's not good, that's problematic for them. From a fan perspective, both of those guys, would be in trouble, but I think they would lean, more so towards Ron Rivera. Like, he can't coach. He won't get rid of some of these bum ass assistant coaches who can't coach. He's got to go. We got to get a guy in here that knows what he's doing. We got too much talent. You're going to hear that a million times. So I think that's how I would view it. Let's see. Rich says, our pick should be Kyle Hamilton if he's available. I know about how Ron thinks about safeties, but he visited and it was reported we have strong interest. But if he's not there, Olave or trade. I'll just say I've said this somewhere else, so you'll have to watch that person's channel. And when he tells me, gives me the green light to say it, then I'll make sure I send you his way. But I've somewhat said the same thing. I don't think you're wrong. I'll put it that way. Let's see. I think that is the last comment we have. Got one here. Rich says, a name to remember is Zion McCollum, cornerback, Sam Houston State. I love him in the late rounds. He's going to be a stud in my eyes. I think he's a guy that's kind of, moving up draft boards. He's tall, long, fast. These are all qualities that people love in corners. So I think he's a guy that's starting to attract a ton of attention. So I wouldn't be shocked if he goes a lot sooner than you think. I do think he is a day 3 prospect, but it wouldn't shock me if he heard his name called in round 4, because he's got traits that you can't teach. And, I can work with a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", and runs a sub 4.5. I can work with that guy. So I think that's another guy that might be a little bit higher than you think. Let's see. Malachi Malik writes, Grizzlies better punish them Wolves tonight. Did you see Ja Morant IG post, Lou? If you're talking about the Jordan one with the bat, I did. If you're talking about another one, then I probably did not. Yes, you're right. We need to punish them tonight. And I told my best friend and I told my dad, we were talking about the series. Tonight can't just be like, if we lose, we're in big trouble. That goes without saying. But this can't be like a 1, 2, 3 point squeaker of a victory either. Even though we would get the split and go back to Minnesota with a chance to steal home court back. The Timberwolves are playing with house money. They've already achieved what they set out to achieve when they came to Memphis. Now they're playing with house money. You can't let these boys off the hook. I feel like, and I've said this to anybody that'll listen, this feels like last year when we went to Utah, we were young, dumb, hungry, didn't know any better. We just come out of the play-in tournament off of a road game at Golden State, won. Nobody expected us to do that. We go to Utah. They've got their best player in Spider Mitchell out. We go in there and we dominate the game from the second quarter on and we win. We're feeling good about ourselves and we're saying this is going to be a series. And then they proceeded to kick our ass 4 games in a row and sent us packing. Told us we weren't ready yet. I'm hoping that we have that same mindset and mentality. But the problem is that was a veteran Utah team. We're a young team. We're just as young as the Timberwolves, if not younger than them. It's like staring in the mirror. So do we have enough playoff chops? Do we have enough wherewithal to tell these young boys, y'all ain't ready yet? Tonight needs to be one of those games where from start to finish, we dominate. It doesn't have to be a 17-point blowout, but it needs to be a game where you reestablish dominance and assertion that, hey, y'all ain't ready for this yet. This needs to be a game that we're up by 12 at halftime. And, they're going to make a run because basketball is a game of runs. And, that lead spikes to 18 in the third quarter. Timberwolves make a run. They cut the lead to 8 points before we run it back to 14 and ultimately win the game by 7. That's what tonight needs to be. If it's not that kind of game, and at the end of the game, I'm at the edge of my seat, biting my fingernails, heart beating fast, and we still pull it out, we're in trouble. We're in big, big, big trouble. But if we take care of business tonight, I feel like we've righted the ship. And that's what I expect to happen. I expect us to let these boys know we showed up and we forgot it was the playoffs. You've been playing playoff games for the last week and a half. We had a whole week off. We didn't play our starters in the final game of the season. We had all this time off to let the playing tournament happen. And y'all showed up ready to play playoff basketball, and we still thought it was the regular season. Now we know it's the playoffs, and we're going to come play ready to play ball, and I think that's what you're going to see. So we'll see what happens. It's a big one for sure. Anyway, HHC Lunar says, who gets James Bradbury? That's a great question. There are a number of teams that I've heard are interested in James Bradbury. Obviously, you're going to have to trade for him and you're going to have to give up some draft capital. This trade will not happen until after the draft because someone's going to miss out at the corner position. You're not going to get, everyone can't get one of the elite corners. Someone's going to want one of them and not be able to get one. I still think the best place for a guy like James Bradbury is Kansas City. They still need, they haven't had a stud number one corner in ages. They keep putting band-aids. Like if you reject something that was a former first round pick, they're the first to come scoop it up. It's like they're driving around the NFL neighborhood on Thursdays, seeing if anybody's throwing out an old first round corner that they don't want anymore. Mike Hughes, DeAndre Baker, like this is what they do. You throw out an old first round corner, like, ooh, they pick it up and they put it in the back of their truck. So I still think they're the front runner, especially when you look at how the AFC has changed the landscape and how things have changed drastically. You need a corner. With all these dogs at quarterback in the AFC, you need a corner. You need a dog. Denver's got dogs at corner. You saw what the Chargers did. They went and got him a dog in J.C. Jackson to go along with a pass rush. Okay. Buffalo has a dog in Tre'Davious White. They went and got another dog that can go hunt in Von Miller. You see what it's turning into. Kansas City can't stay stagnant and think that these other teams will not catch and pass their ass. They're already close and nipping at their heels. If you're Kansas City, you got to do something. You just lost Tyreek Hill. The playing field is no longer tilted in your favor offensively. You've got to do something. I think going and getting a guy like James Bradberry, if you don't get a guy in the draft that you love and think can be a number one corner, I think going and getting a guy like James Bradberry makes a ton of sense. And they got the draft capital to do it this year. Make the trade in the draft. Like, they've got 12 draft picks to the Chiefs. So you can make something happen in the draft if you so choose. We'll see what they decide to do. HHC Lunar says Grizzlies might need their Clay to Ja Steph to win a championship. We got stuff. We got young boys that I'll tell anybody that will listen. Desmond Bane is that guy. He's still, this is only his second year in the league, but the man made, colossal leaps in just about every statistical category. Okay. So he was a 40, 50, 90 guy this year. Do you know how hard it is to do that in the NBA in your second year? For those of you who don't know, 40 behind the line, 50% field goal percentage, 90 free throw percentage. Percentage. I said that right. So, you know how hard it is to go 40, 50, 90? Like, he's that dude. But and I need him to step up in game 2. He was not good in game 1. I need him to step up in game 2. And I think he will. Meest 703 says, how did you become a Grizzlies fan? I'm going to tell that story another day. It's long. It's not super long, but it's long enough. I don't want to tell it right now, but I promise you I will tell you that story. I'll tell you the Madden in the Trap House story. I'll tell you, I've got stories for days. We'll have those conversations in the offseason when there's nothing to talk about. I promise. I will not forget. Anyway, Jason Fios says, what's up, Lou? Which tight end would you take? One who plays like a receiver and have to teach blocking, or a great blocker that has to work on their hands? Is the great blocker an athlete, or is he just a plotter that, isn't going to move the needle? Is he a third tight end? Like, is he John Bates? Or is this guy an athlete that just needs, refine? Is he? So I guess essentially what I'm asking you is he John Bates, or is he Sammy's Reyes? Because Reyes can block. That's his one attribute right now, but he still has to learn how to run routes, catch the football, that type of thing. Sammy's and whereas Bates, he can block, but he's not a tremendous athlete. You could take the athletically gifted dude, but he can't block a lick. We had that guy. His name was Jordan Reed. And I don't think we gave a shit that he couldn't block, but then it mattered when we got into short yardage situations and he just ole and let somebody through, and a 3rd and 1 ends up turning into a 4th and 3 and we got a punt. So the shit matters. Which would I prefer? I'd prefer the guy that blocks, that's an athlete that I got to teach to be a route runner and catch the football. Because that was Darren Waller. He was a receiver. He was physical. He would block, but he didn't know anything about being a tight end. So he had to develop and he had to learn, and look what he's morphed into. Can't teach athleticism. Either you have it or you don't. Fat Boy V, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, yo, Lou, what it do? What's good with you, Fat Boy V? He says, catch me up today. What I miss? Will Ja bounce back tonight? First of all, Ja was good. Ja scored 32 points. Now, Ja wasn't good in the fourth quarter when we needed him. I will say that. But he had a parade to the free throw line. We didn't take a lot of threes, and I thought that was the difference in the game. They made and they're the highest 3-point shooting and percentage team in the league. So that's what they do. This is the second year in a row in the first round. We're facing a team that took the most threes and made the most threes in the league. That was Utah last year. It's the Wolves this year. We're going to have to shoot the three with confidence. We're going to have to make them. We only made 7 threes. To me, that was the difference in the game. We make 10 threes. Okay, 3 more three-point shots. That's 9 more points on the scoreboard. We win the game. Okay, and I get it. We lost by 13. Don't let the score deceive you. That wasn't a 130 to 117 game. If you watched it, you know that game was a lot closer for much of the game. They pulled away late when we had to start forcing up shots, trying to get back into the game. So to me, you make 3 more threes. We can't, first of all, you can't give up 130 and expect to win in the playoffs. And it won't happen again. We won't give up 130 tonight. But you also have to shoot the 3 ball. And we've been shooting the lights out of the gym with the 3 ball, the back end of the season. And I'm telling you, we just went ice cold in game 1 because we hadn't played in so long. I expect a bounce back game from DeAnthony Melton, from Desmond Bane, and Tripp was in foul trouble. He never really got into a rhythm. I expect him to have a bounce back game, and I expect Ja to take his game to the next level. So I think we'll be fine tonight. Oh, and he says, who do you think we should pick in the draft if they're there, and who do you think we will draft at 11? Give me your top 2 picks. So if they are there, I think they're going to take Kyle Hamilton. Who I ultimately think they will pick is Chris Olave. But I think if Kyle Hamilton is there, unlike my mock draft where he was there and we passed up the opportunity to take him to trade back, I think if he is available, I think they take him at 11. He being Kyle Hamilton. So, I honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of the Ohio State receivers, Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley Jr. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those dudes. They're all super talented. They all come in, improve a position of need for this team. Cornerback, not that high on the list, especially after drafting Benjamin St. Juste last year, but I'm already concerned about his concussion situation. You can never have enough corners, and I would love to add a guy like Derek Stingley to the mix, especially when you look at the landscape of the NFC and you see the receivers that exist in the division. The only thing that's stopping this division from having, big time receiver numbers being put up is the quarterback play in the division, which is awful. So they're receivers though in this division. Don't get it twisted. So you can't go wrong, I think, at 11. Yeah, we're in a great spot because something's going to fall to us, And Olave isn't technically falling to us. He's supposed to be there. The consensus is Olave is a guy that should be picked 15 or later. I don't care about that stuff. Get a guy when you feel the need to be getting your guy. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 255th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Thursday, which is when we will meet again. If you're a Washington fan out there, Wednesday nights this week will be Washington or the Command Post Live, because Thursday we will have our Super Friends NFC East stream. So be on the lookout for that. I've already posted on IG. I'll remind you guys tomorrow and Thursday to tune in to that. Come and represent the Commanders. Hold me down, okay? Because that Philly fans are going to come support their guy LB. Giants fans are going to come support Bad Dog, and Cowboys fans are going to be in the building supporting Loss. So y'all got to come and hold me down. I'm the home team, so I need the stands to be. Don't treat this like a game at FedEx and don't show up and allow the a visiting team to come in and take over the stadium. I need y'all to hold me down, be here in full effect when we do the Super Friends stream. So hopefully I'll see most of you there for that. But I will see all you Washington fans tomorrow night for the Command Post Live, and I'll see the rest of you for the podcast on Thursday before we get into the Super Friends stream later on that night. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted. You know what this is. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. God bless and good night. Go Grizz!